The truth doesn't bleed. It calcifies, like armor growing beneath your skin while you stare at 5 words on a phone screen. Don't come home. It's over. My name is Albert Grayson, and I'm 32 years old. These days, I wake up alone in the house I fought to keep, making breakfast for my son Alex before school. I trusted my wife Lydia with everything while serving overseas. Instead, she and her lover Evan Carter dismantled our life piece by piece. My attorney Nisa Patel helped me see the pattern in their betrayal. Calculated, deliberate, documented. I won't be their victim. Their consequences are just beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. The sunset bled across the airport terminal windows as I read Lydia's text for the 100th time. 5 words that turned my homecoming into ash. Don't come home. It's over. My throat tightened, but I didn't call. 9 months in combat teaches you when silence is your strongest weapon. The drive home felt like a reconnaissance mission. Every traffic light, every familiar turn brought me closer to whatever waited behind our front door. The evening shadows stretched across our driveway, where a strange car sat in my usual spot. Sleek, expensive, everything my old pickup wasn't. Remember how your mom's kitchen always smelled like coffee and banana bread? That memory hit me as I turned my key in the lock, because our kitchen held different scents now. The lingering sweetness of Alex's bedtime shampoo mixed with unfamiliar cologne. Lydia stood by the sink, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. A man I'd never met, Evan, leaned against our counter like he'd earned the right to be there. He wore a watch I recognized, the anniversary gift I'd sent Lydia 3 months ago. "Albert, you shouldn't be here," Lydia said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "This is my house." I kept my voice steady, controlled. "Where's Alex?" "With my sister. He doesn't need to see." "Conflict." "Conflict?" I set my duffel down slowly. "You sent 'Don't come home' and put a stranger in my kitchen." Evan's smirk made my fingers itch. "We're done being afraid of your temper." "My temper?" I stepped closer, measuring each movement. "Name one time I put a hand on either of you." "Words are hands," Lydia snapped. "You're controlling. You left us. I left to serve. You knew the dates. We FaceTimed every week." She lifted her chin. "I'm happy now. The lawyer says you can get a hotel. We'll sort it out." "No. We'll sort it out today." I pulled out my phone, thumbed through notifications. "You picked a lawyer? Good. Have him read the deed. My name. The Ring camera saw Evan's car here for months, and if you drained my deployment allotment like these bank notifications suggest, we're not talking sorting. We're talking fraud." The color drained from Lydia's face. "You think you can threaten me?" "I don't threaten," I said, voice as cold as desert nights. "I file." I left my house keys on the counter. They weren't needed anymore. The folder of screenshots felt heavy in my hand as I shouldered my duffel. 9 months I'd carried a rifle, but this evidence would be my new weapon. I walked out without looking back. Some battles you win by choosing the right battlefield. The city lights blurred as I drove to Nisa Patel's office. Her website had promised late hours for military clients. Tonight, I'd test that promise. The folder beside me held everything: screenshots of drained accounts, deployment pay diversions, Ring camera timestamps of Evan's BMW parked in my spot night after night. The law office occupied an old brick building downtown. A security guard buzzed me up, and I found Nisa still at her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked exactly like her website photo. Silver streaks in dark hair, calm eyes that had seen every flavor of betrayal. "Mr. Grayson," she gestured to a chair, "your message mentioned deployment fraud. Start from the beginning." I handed her the folder. "Got this text when I landed." I showed her my phone. Went home anyway. Found my wife, a stranger wearing my anniversary gift to her, and my son sent away so I wouldn't cause conflict. Nisa spread the documents across her desk, methodically sorting them into piles. Bank notifications first. These withdrawal patterns, she tapped a statement. Classic diversion. And these signatures authorizing new credit lines. They match? No, not even close to mine. She nodded, already reaching for her phone. We're freezing accounts tonight. Tomorrow we subpoena everything. Phone records, bank documents, credit applications. The Ring camera footage helps establish timeline of infidelity. But the forged signatures? She looked up sharply. That's beyond family court. What about Alex? My voice caught. She's already moved him once. We file for emergency custody orders first thing. But Mr. Grayson, she leaned forward, your wife will likely attempt preemptive strikes, false allegations, emergency protective orders. We need your JAG contact on record now. I put my JAG officer on speaker. Captain Morris's voice filled the office, crisp despite the late hour. Grayson, document everything. Phone logs, texts, witnesses. If those signatures are forged, we're looking at potential criminal charges. Civilian courts handle the divorce, but CID will want fraud evidence preserved. She's already hidden Alex once, I said. What's stopping her from escalating? Nisa cut in. The truth. We build our case on facts, not fears. Every false claim she makes digs her hole deeper. I rubbed my eyes, exhaustion hitting like a wave. Where do I sleep tonight? Hotel's risky. She could claim you're unstable, living transiently, Nisa said. Any local friends? An hour later, I lay on my buddy Mike's couch, staring at his ceiling. The confrontation played on loop. Lydia's crossed arms, Evan's smirk, the empty space where Alex should have been. My phone buzzed at dawn. A court courier stood at Mike's door. The papers shook in my hands. Emergency restraining order. Attached was a partial audio clip from our kitchen conversation, edited to amplify my voice, cut to remove context. Lydia claimed I burst in raging, that she feared for her safety. I sank onto Mike's couch, the papers heavy in my lap. The legal system now held Lydia's first lies. I wondered just how deep she would dig her hole before we hit bottom. The morning light felt harsh as I walked back into Nisa's office, clutching the restraining order papers. She was already pulling up the Ring camera footage on her monitor. Watch this, she said, gesturing me closer. Full clip first, then her edited version. The footage showed me entering quietly, duffel still on my shoulder. Every word came through crystal clear. My steady questions, Lydia's sharp responses, Evan's cocky interjections. 10 minutes of controlled conversation, not a single raised voice. Then, Nisa played Lydia's submitted clip. 30 seconds, spliced to emphasize any firmness in my tone, cutting out their provocations and threats. The manipulation was obvious once you saw both versions. This is good for us, Nisa said, pausing the playback. Submitting doctored evidence damages her credibility. The judge will see the full footage. I nodded, but my mind drifted to the video calls with Alex during deployment. His gap-toothed grin as he showed me art projects. His serious face explaining playground politics. 9 months of pixels and promises, holding on to those moments during midnight watches. The temporary visitation order came through, Nisa continued. 2 hours today at your sister-in-law's house, supervised. I'm also filing motions to unfreeze the accounts she accessed fraudulently and get you temporary access to collect belongings from the house. My throat tightened. 2 hours? It's standard procedure until the emergency hearing. Make the most of it. That afternoon, I pulled up to Karen's house, Lydia's sister. She'd always been civil to me, at least. She opened the door with an awkward nod, leading me to their playroom. Alex looked up from his Legos, eyes widening. Dad! He crashed into my legs, small arms squeezing tight. I dropped to my knees, breathing in the familiar scent of his shampoo, the same one I'd caught traces of in the kitchen yesterday. God, had it only been yesterday? I missed you, buddy, I managed, voice steady. Mom said you're staying somewhere else. He pulled back, forehead creased with confusion. When can I come home, Dad? The question hit like a punch to the gut. I forced a smile, knowing Karen was watching from the doorway. Soon, Alex. There's some grown-up stuff we need to figure out first. But I'm right here, okay? I'm not going anywhere. We built Lego towers and drew pictures. Alex's specialty was still dinosaurs wearing hats. He chatted about school, his new friend Marcus, the playground's broken swing. Normal kid stuff, like the world hadn't shifted. Too soon, Karen cleared her throat. Time to wrap up, Alex. He pressed a drawing into my hands, a T-Rex in what might have been an army helmet. It's you, Dad. Being brave. I hugged him tight, memorizing the feel of his small frame against mine. I love you, buddy. I'll see you real soon. Back in my car, I carefully tucked the drawing into my pocket, next to the deployment photos I still carried. The paper crinkled against my chest, like a reminder. Every motion filed, every piece of evidence gathered, was another step toward bringing my son home. The next week blurred into a haze of paperwork and purpose. Every morning, I'd wake before dawn. Old Army habits die hard and add to our growing arsenal of evidence. My deployment records filled a thick binder. Orders, dates, scheduled leaves. I printed hundreds of FaceTime logs showing regular calls with Alex, each one a pixel-perfect argument against abandonment. But the document that made Nisa lean forward was the family care plan, notarized 3 days before I shipped out. Lydia's signature, clear as day, agreeing to maintain our joint accounts with transparency and preserve my access to our home, the same home she'd tried to lock me out of. This is excellent, Nisa said, adding it to her folder. And the bank? I slid over their report. 2 e-signatures authorizing new credit lines, both traced to an IP address registered to Evan's phone. The dates lined up with large withdrawals from my deployment pay. They're pursuing internal fraud charges, I explained, remembering how Alex used to ask to call me whenever Evan visited. My son caught in their web of lies. The thought made my hands shake. The morning of the hearing, I adjusted my tie in the courthouse bathroom mirror. The face looking back was weathered but composed. I'd faced worse pressure points than this. At least here, the rules were clear. Walking into the courtroom, I spotted them immediately. Lydia sat rigid in a navy dress, while Evan leaned close, whispering urgently in her ear. Their lawyer shuffled papers with nervous energy. All rise. Judge Matthews studied both parties over her reading glasses. When Nisa played the full Ring camera footage, the room fell silent. 10 minutes of clear audio. My measured tone, their provocations, the obvious manipulation in Lydia's edited version. Mrs. Grayson, Judge Matthews said finally, submitting doctored evidence is a serious matter. This court takes a dim view of attempts to mischaracterize domestic situations. Lydia's face drained of color. Even Evan stopped fidgeting. Given the evidence before me, I'm granting temporary exclusive use of the marital home to Mr. Grayson. Furthermore, a structured custody schedule will begin immediately. Mr. Grayson will have Alex Wednesday through Sunday, with Mrs. Grayson having Monday and Tuesday visits. The relief hit like a wave. 4 nights a week with my son. Our home secured. That evening, I carried Alex's Pokémon backpack through our front door, his small hand wrapped in mine. The house smelled different. Lydia's perfume faded, replaced by the simple scent of clean laundry and Alex's favorite mac and cheese. Can I play in my room, Dad? Sure can, buddy. I'll call you for dinner. His footsteps thundered up the stairs, and for one perfect moment, everything felt right. I started unpacking groceries, letting myself enjoy the simple rhythm of putting things where they belonged. The knock came just after 9. Alex already asleep upstairs. A courier, apologetic, with a thick envelope, new filing papers. I read them under the kitchen light, each word hitting like ice water. Lydia had scheduled a wellness check, claiming Alex told her I scared him. There were forms from Child Protective Services, temporary custody modifications pending investigation. The papers slipped from my fingers. The kitchen, my kitchen, finally mine again, suddenly felt like quicksand beneath my feet. The CPS letter sat on my coffee table like a bomb waiting to detonate. 1 week suspension of custody time, standard protocol, they assured me, just a routine investigation. But there was nothing routine about missing Alex's bedtime stories, his morning cartoons, the way he'd drum his heels against the kitchen cabinets while I made breakfast. I wandered through our empty house that first night, footsteps echoing off walls still decorated with the life we'd built. A father-son fishing trip photo from last summer. Alex's kindergarten art project, a mess of glitter and pride. The Christmas portrait, where he wore that crooked bow tie and couldn't stop giggling. Each frame felt like a promise I had to keep. Sleep wasn't happening. I kept seeing Alex's face, imagining him confused and scared, wondering why Dad disappeared again. The couch cushions still held the indent from where we'd read comics yesterday. His half-finished glass of milk sat in the fridge, cartoon characters smiling obliviously on the plastic. Morning came slow, but it came with purpose. I showered, shaved, put on a clean shirt, called Dr. Martinez's pediatric office the moment they opened. I need Alex's complete medical records, I told the receptionist. Every visit, every note. She must have heard something in my voice, the edge of a father fighting for his kid. Come by at 11. I'll have everything ready. 5 years of checkups, documented in careful detail. Not a single red flag. No behavioral concerns, no signs of fear or anxiety around either parent. Just normal kid stuff. Ear infections, skinned knees, updated vaccinations. Dr. Martinez's notes painted a picture of a well-adjusted boy with an engaged father. But it was the Ring camera footage that turned the tide. I sat at my desk that evening, methodically scanning through months of archived video. The camera caught everything: comings, goings, conversations on our front porch. Then I found it, 3 nights ago, just before the wellness check. Evan's car pulled up at dusk. He led Alex onto the porch, kneeling to eye level. The audio was crystal clear. "Hey, buddy, remember what we talked about? When they ask you questions tomorrow, you need to say you get scared when Daddy gets loud." Alex's small voice. "But Dad doesn't get loud." "I know, but this is like pretend, like acting in a play. It'll help your mom, okay? Can you do that for us?" My hands clenched. On screen, my son shifted uncomfortably, looking at his shoes. "I guess. Good boy. Don't worry. It'll all be over soon." The timestamp showed 7:43 p.m. My phone's location history proved I was 20 miles away, working late at the base. Evan had orchestrated this whole thing, using my own son as a weapon. I watched it 3 times, each viewing stoking a cold fury. Then I exported the clip and fired off an email to Nisa. Found this in Ring camera archives. Evan coaching Alex before the wellness check. I was on base. Location data attached. They set this up. Her response came within minutes. "This changes everything." I stared at those 3 words, feeling the ground shift back under my feet. The house was still quiet, still empty of Alex's laughter. But now I had proof of their manipulation, caught in high definition. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd tried to weaponize my son's innocence. That wasn't just crossing a line. That was declaring war. Nisa didn't waste time. By 9 the next morning, she'd filed an emergency motion to admit the Ring camera footage and requested sanctions against Lydia for evidence tampering. Her legal language burned with controlled outrage. Exactly what I felt watching that video on repeat. "We need more supporting evidence," Nisa said over the phone. "Anyone who might have noticed patterns while you were deployed?" Mr. Baldwin's porch came to mind immediately. The retired math teacher spent every evening in his wicker chair, sipping tea and watching the neighborhood with sharp eyes. I walked over that afternoon, found him in his usual spot. "Albert," he nodded, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. "Been waiting for you to stop by." "Mr. Baldwin, I need to ask about what you might have seen while I was overseas." He set his tea down carefully. "You mean that fancy car that showed up most nights? The banker fellow?" His eyes narrowed. "Started about 2 months after you left. Always arrived after dark, left early morning. Didn't sit right with me, son." My throat tightened. "Would you be willing to put that in writing?" Already started a log back then. Dates, times, that car's model. Once a teacher, always a teacher. We document everything. He disappeared inside and returned with a small notebook. Made copies, too, just in case. The pages held methodical entries, times, dates, all in neat teacher's handwriting. Mr. Baldwin had even noted which nights Evan's car stayed until morning. 3 months' worth of evidence I hadn't even known existed. "This is thorough," I managed. "Some things deserve to be remembered exactly as they happened." He signed a formal statement right there on his porch, had his wife witness it. Back home, I spread everything across my kitchen table. Bank records, deployment emails, Mr. Baldwin's log, the Ring camera footage. I spoke each piece aloud, drilling the dates and details into memory until they felt carved in stone. No emotion, just facts. Facts couldn't be twisted. The next morning, I walked into Nisa's office with the complete package. She reviewed Mr. Baldwin's statement twice, nodding slowly. "This corroborates everything," she said. "The timeline of Evan's presence, the pattern of overnight stays, all while you were deployed and sending support payments." She began drafting a summary for Lydia's counsel, adding a note about potential CID involvement if the fraud charges proceeded. 2 days later, my phone rang. The CPS caseworker's voice carried welcome news. "Mr. Grayson, we're closing our inquiry. Doctor, Martinez's records show no concerns, and we've reviewed the video showing Mr. Carter's inappropriate coaching of Alex. There are no issues with your parenting." Relief flooded through me, but it wasn't just relief. It was vindication. Every piece of evidence, every documented fact, had carved away at their lies until truth emerged. I watched Nisa seal the final envelope containing our complete response. Bank records, Mr. Baldwin's log, medical records, CPS findings, and that damning Ring camera footage. The package that could end Lydia's case sat ready for delivery. The waiting felt eternal after Nisa's office confirmed delivery. I'd rehearsed this moment, imagined every scenario, but when my phone finally lit up the next afternoon, seeing Barry Keating's name still made my hand pause before answering. "Mr. Grayson." His voice carried that practiced lawyer's calm. "I hope this is a good time to discuss resolution options." I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on Alex's class photo on my desk. "I'm listening. We've reviewed the materials your counsel provided. My client is prepared to offer significant concessions." He cleared his throat. "Full ownership of the house, no spousal support claims, and we'll agree to whatever custody schedule you propose. In exchange, we ask that you consider not pursuing criminal charges." The offer hung in the air. 6 months ago, it might have tempted me, but I'd learned too much about the price of compromise. "Not enough," I said flatly. "Withdraw the false claims, admit the coaching, and repay the deployment funds." A pause stretched between us. I could almost hear him recalculating. "Albert, listen." His tone shifted, more personal now. "She's emotional. She made mistakes. But if we can just soften the terms, keep visitation shared, reduce restitution, we can close this without dragging everyone through months of litigation." "No." The word came out like steel. "Every time you ask me to soften, you're asking me to carry her lies. I carried enough overseas. I won't carry them here. At least consider spousal support waived, but shared custody. His voice cracked slightly, desperation seeping through. Albert, I'm asking you, as a father myself, don't take this to a place that destroys her completely. The mention of fatherhood sparked something in me. I thought of Alex's face when Evan coached him to lie, of the trust Lydia had poisoned. Mr. Keating, I kept my voice measured but firm. Your client destroyed herself when she forged signatures and coached a child. I'm not negotiating mercy. I'm dictating justice. The line went quiet. When he spoke again, his professional veneer had crumbled entirely. His voice carried the hollow sound of a man watching his case collapse. Understood. The call ended. I set the phone down and stared at it, feeling the weight of months of fighting begin to lift. Not because I'd won, but because truth had finally broken through every crafted lie. The setting sun cast long shadows across my desk, highlighting the edges of case files I wouldn't need much longer. Somewhere across town, Lydia was probably getting similar news from Barry Keating. Her carefully constructed narrative had just shattered against hard evidence and harder resolve. I touched Alex's photo, remembering his small hand in mine during supervised visits, the way he'd asked when he could come home. Soon, buddy. Very soon. The house settled around me with familiar creaks. In the quiet, I realized this wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about rebuilding something honest from the ruins of betrayal. And for the first time since that text message at the airport, I knew exactly how to do it. The morning of the final hearing dawned crisp and clear. I adjusted my tie in the courthouse bathroom mirror, remembering how many times I'd done the same before deployment briefings. Strange how familiar routines carry you through unfamiliar battles. Nisa met me in the hallway, her portfolio thick with evidence we wouldn't need to present. The settlement terms were already agreed upon. This was just making it official. Still, my throat tightened when I saw Lydia sitting alone in the front row, her shoulders rigid under a navy blazer that looked new and uncomfortable. No Evan. Of course not. Men like him disappear when consequences arrive. I slid into place beside Nisa, the wooden bench familiar after months of hearings. The gallery behind us was nearly empty, just our court reporter and a few staff attorneys killing time between their own cases. The judge's chair creaked as she settled in, glasses perched low as she reviewed our file. We're here to finalize the dissolution of marriage between Albert and Lydia Grayson, she began, her tone clipped and professional. I understand the parties have reached a full agreement? Yes, Your Honor, Nisa and Barry responded in unison. The judge nodded, then began methodically reviewing each element of our settlement. The doctored recording that had started this war, the Ring camera footage showing Evan's coaching, bank statements with forged signatures traced to his IP address. Each piece laid bare the architecture of betrayal. Mrs. Grayson will transfer all interest in the marital home to Mr. Grayson, the judge continued. Full restitution of misappropriated deployment funds in the amount of $28,000. Attorney's fees assessed against Mrs. Grayson. I heard Lydia's sharp intake of breath, but kept my eyes forward. Regarding custody of the minor child, Alex Grayson. Primary physical custody to father, with mother's visitation as outlined in the attached schedule. The judge paused, peering over her glasses. Additionally, a protective order barring Evan Carter from any contact with the minor child is entered as requested. My hand tightened on the armrest. Alex's name in official records still hit like a punch to the chest. Does either party wish to be heard before I sign? The silence stretched. From the corner of my eye, I saw Lydia shake her head slightly. Very well. The judge's pen scratched across the final page. This concludes the matter. You'll receive certified copies within 10 business days. Just like that, it was done. Months of fighting distilled into a few minutes of legal ceremony. Outside the courtroom, Alex waited with the court child care staff, coloring intently. He looked up as I approached, his face breaking into a smile that made my chest ache. "Ready to go home, buddy?" He nodded, slipping his small hand into mine as we walked toward the elevator. The weight of his trust felt heavier than any rucksack I'd ever carried. Behind us, I heard the sharp click of Lydia's heels retreating down the opposite hallway. I didn't turn around. Some chapters need to end without a final look back. But as we stepped into the afternoon sun, Evan's smug kitchen smirk flashed through my mind. He thought he could take my home, my son, my dignity, and walk away clean. The memory of his arrogance settled like ice in my chest. I squeezed Alex's hand gently as we reached the car. This victory was solid, but not complete. Not yet. The drive home felt longer than usual, with Alex humming softly in the back seat. Each familiar turn brought us closer to a house that finally, legally, belonged to just us. No more temporary orders or pending hearings, just home. "Dad, can we have pizza tonight?" Alex asked as we pulled into the driveway. "Sure can, buddy." I smiled in the rearview mirror. "Let's get your stuff inside first." His backpack looked heavier than I remembered from my own first-grade days. The weight of shuttling between houses, I guessed. We'd both carried enough of that lately. Inside, Alex dumped his belongings on the kitchen table. A scatter of worksheets, half-used colored pencils, and a slightly squished peanut butter sandwich still in its bag. The sight hit me with a memory of countless deployment care packages, carefully wrapped snacks that arrived crushed, but loved. "Here, let's sort this out," I said, helping him organize homework from art projects. His small fingers worked carefully, smoothing crumpled papers with determination that squeezed my heart. The house felt different now, quieter, but not empty, like the silence after a storm passes, when you can finally assess what weathered through. My phone buzzed just as we finished. Mark Torres from my old unit, now working security at First National downtown. "Al, thought you'd want to know," he said quietly. "That Carter guy, the one who—" "Well, internal audit flagged those signatures you reported. It's spreading fast." My hand stilled on Alex's math folder. "How fast?" "Compliance pulled his whole file this morning. 3 departments reviewing everything he's touched. When bankers whisper, 'fraud review,' careers don't survive." I watched Alex arrange his pencils by color, innocent to the adult world crumbling elsewhere. "Keep me posted?" "Will do. Hey, you good? With everything?" "Getting there," I answered, reaching over to ruffle Alex's hair. "One day at a time." By afternoon, another text from Mark confirmed what I'd expected. Evan's involvement had been escalated to senior compliance officers. External regulators were being notified. The dominoes were falling exactly as they should. That evening, I tucked Alex into bed, with his favorite book about a brave knight who protected his castle. His eyes grew heavy by page 3. "Dad?" he murmured sleepily. "Are we staying here now? For real?" "Yeah, buddy. For real." I smoothed his blanket. "This is our home." "Good," he sighed, drifting off. "I like it better with just us." I sat there watching him breathe peacefully for a moment before checking my phone one last time. A new email from Mark contained an official notice. Evan Carter suspended indefinitely. Termination proceedings initiated. The night air felt clean when I stepped onto the porch. Stars scattered across the sky like distant witnesses to justice finally arriving. Somewhere across town, Evan was probably staring at his own suspension notice, watching his carefully constructed world begin to crack. I breathed deeply, letting the cool breeze wash over me. The porch light cast just enough glow to illuminate Alex's bike leaning against the railing, waiting for tomorrow's adventures. Inside, my son slept safely in his own bed, in our home, while the man who tried to take it all faced the consequences of his choices. 3 weeks after the court ruling, I was sorting mail at the kitchen table when my phone lit up with a text from Mark. Carter cleared out his desk today. Security escort. No severance. I set my coffee down, letting that sink in. Strange how news that should taste like victory just felt quiet, like watching a tide go out. Natural, inevitable, but nothing to celebrate. Mr. Baldwin called the next afternoon while I was helping Alex with his science project. "Albert, thought you might want to know. Quite a scene on Cherry Street this morning." His voice carried that careful tone neighbors use when sharing difficult news. "Tow truck took that fancy car of his, the blue one that used to park in your driveway." "The BMW?" I asked, watching Alex carefully glue cotton balls to represent cloud formations. "That's the one." Fellow didn't look too pleased about it either. Word traveled fast in banking circles. Mark kept me updated through industry channels. No major firm would touch Evan's resume. Fraud allegations stick like tar in finance, and his involvement with forged signatures made him radioactive. Regional banks, investment firms, even insurance offices shut their doors. The debt collectors started showing up at his apartment complex. I heard this from Sarah at the coffee shop, where I grabbed breakfast with Alex on Saturday mornings. "Man in a suit, pounding on doors," she said, wiping down the counter, asking everyone if they'd seen Evan Carter. Lydia tried distancing herself publicly, but mud splashes wide. Her company's HR department launched a quiet review of her role in the forgery mess. She was moved to a smaller office, handed fewer accounts, pushed toward the margins of meetings she used to lead. Last I heard, she'd downsized to a one-bedroom apartment across town. "Dad, can we get pizza again?" Alex asked one evening, sprawled on the living room floor with his homework. "Sure, buddy. Same place as last week?" He nodded, pencil moving carefully across his math worksheet. The normalcy felt earned now. Pizza nights, homework routines, his toy cars scattered under the coffee table. The mail that day brought final confirmation. All accounts were separated. The house deed transferred solely to my name. Alex's college fund secured. I paid bills at the kitchen table while Alex worked. Everything balanced and clear. No more unauthorized withdrawals or hidden credit lines. Through the window, I could see Mr. Baldwin on his porch, sipping his evening tea. He raised his cup slightly. Our quiet ritual now. Beyond him, the street where Evan's BMW used to gleam sat empty, collecting fallen leaves instead of status symbols. Somewhere across town, Lydia and Evan were drowning in the chaos they'd created. Creditors circled Evan's dwindling assets, while Lydia's career withered under the shadow of association. They'd built their betrayal on borrowed time and stolen money. Now, the bill had come due. I turned back to Alex's voice, asking about pizza toppings, to our warm kitchen, to the life we were carefully rebuilding. The satisfaction wasn't in their unraveling, but in our stability. Every bill paid, every promise kept, every routine restored. They'd gambled our security for their comfort. Now we had one, and they had neither. 6 months passed like a long exhale. Life found its rhythm again, marked by small sounds I'd missed during deployment. Alex's sneakers thumping against the wall when he kicked them off. His backpack landing with a thud by the front door. The scrape of his chair at breakfast. The house belonged to us now. Really belonged, with no shadows lurking in the corners. Remember how I used to wake up tense overseas, counting days until I'd be home? Now I woke to Alex calling from downstairs, asking if we could have pancakes, simple moments, real ones. Saturday mornings meant yard work. I'd pull weeds while Alex helped, mostly by collecting interesting rocks and asking 1,000 questions about everything from clouds to caterpillars. Later, we'd sit on the porch, and I'd teach him knots, figure eights, bowlines, hitches. His small fingers would work the rope carefully, tongue stuck out in concentration, just like I did at his age. "Like this, Dad?" he'd ask, holding up a slightly crooked attempt. "Getting there, buddy. Try one more time." The neighbors kept me updated on the aftermath, even when I didn't ask. Mrs. Chen from the grocery store mentioned seeing Lydia at the discount market. buying generic brands instead of her usual organics. Mr. Baldwin reported Evan's mail piling up at his old apartment before being marked "Return to Sender" in red stamps. Word spread through the banking industry like wildfire. No reputable firm would touch Evan's resume. The fraud investigation had blacklisted him thoroughly. Last anyone heard, he'd fled the city, dodging debt collectors who'd seized his assets, one by one. His polished facade crumbled under the weight of consequences he never thought he'd face. Lydia stayed in her small apartment across town, working reduced hours at a smaller firm. Sometimes I saw her car at the grocery store and took a different aisle. Not out of anger anymore. Just because our paths didn't need to cross except for Alex's custody exchanges. She was rebuilding on her own terms now, learning what life costs when you can't spend someone else's sacrifice. One evening, after tucking Alex in, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. Mr. Baldwin called over from his usual spot. "Quiet night, Albert." "Best kind," I answered. "You know what's funny? People expected rage from me. Expected me to tear through their lies like a storm. But justice doesn't need thunder. It needs precision. Every document filed, every record preserved, every fact presented clearly until the truth stands obvious and undeniable." The lawyer begged for mercy that day on the phone, trying to bargain down the consequences. But mercy wasn't mine to give. I chose justice instead. Clean, clear justice that left no room for manipulation or half-truths. Now I stand at my front door each night, key turning in a lock that answers to me alone. Behind me, Alex's laughter carries from the living room where he's building elaborate towers with his blocks. The house feels right again, like a uniform that fits after a long wash. That's the thing about betrayal. It hits without warning. But consequences? Those strike harder when you pursue them with patience and resolve. They strike true. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.